How far did you have to go to protect your child? When I told my mother I was pregnant, she handed me a custody agreement and said, sign it now so we can avoid the drama when the baby comes because that child is mine. I'd been raised by my grandparents while my mother lived in the same house but acted more like an older sister. She'd had me at 16 and her mother immediately took over, saying teenagers couldn't raise babies properly. Mom never fought it and spent her days shopping and dating while grandma raised me. I thought it was just because she'd been too young, not realizing this was actually a family tradition. Mom would sometimes stare at me with this weird longing and say things like, one day I'll get my turn, but I thought she meant having another baby of her own. I always privately thought that she better not, because she still acted like an irresponsible teenager even well into her 30s. But she'd been collecting baby items for years, filling an entire room with clothes and toys. When I got married at 22, Mom pulled me aside at the reception. She told me that I would surrender my first child to her custody within 1 month of birth. She said it wasn't up for discussion because this was how our family worked. Her mother had done it, her grandmother had done it, and now it was her turn to finally be a mother. She explained that she'd let me live in the house to breastfeed, but all decisions would be hers. I laughed, thinking it was a sick joke, but her face was completely serious. The most horrifying part was that I really wanted a baby. I dreamed of being a mother since I was little, and my husband had a good job and desperately wanted to be a father too. He swore he'd never let Mom take our child. He said we'd move away, hire lawyers, do whatever it took. I trusted that he would protect me, so we started trying. I was still terrified, but I wasn't going to let some sick family tradition stop me from making my dream life with my husband and our future child. Mom called constantly asking if I was pregnant yet, reminding me that her biological clock was ticking. She'd already told everyone in our family that she was going to be a new mother soon and bought a car seat for her vehicle. When I insisted I'd raise my own child, she'd laugh and say I'd understand when I was older why young mothers weren't capable. When I insisted, she'd say, just have two if you want one so bad. Maybe if it's twins, I'll even let you keep the ugly one. My grandma reinforced it too. She'd tell me how selfish I was being, keeping Mom from her destiny. She'd reminisce about how much better she'd raised me than my teenage mother could have and remind me that I was still barely an adult. She showed me photos of Mom as a teen, exhausted and overwhelmed, as proof that young mothers always failed. Meanwhile, Mom still had no job and couldn't get her life in order, so I knew she wasn't ready to be a parent even now. But they'd gang up on me at family dinners, discussing my future pregnancy like I was an incubator. I think the stress of all this was what kept us from conceiving for so long, but I finally got pregnant when I was 24. I was thrilled and terrified. My husband promised we'd disappear before Mom could take the baby and made plans to move before she'd even know I was pregnant. But Mom noticed my body changing way sooner than I expected and forced me to take a test in front of her. When it was positive, she literally got on her knees and thanked God for her baby. My husband kept his promise. We secretly moved 3 states away when I was 7 months pregnant. We told no one in my family, just disappeared one night. I gave birth in a hospital where no one knew my maiden name. For 3 beautiful weeks, I was a normal new mother with my daughter. I finally had everything I dreamed of. Then my husband ran into his old college roommate at the grocery store. He was excited about the baby and posted a congratulations message online before we could stop him. Within hours, my cousin saw it and told Mom. She started calling everyone we knew, trying to find our location. She told people I was having a mental breakdown and had kidnapped her baby. Mom hired someone to trace my phone and showed up at our apartment with Grandma and a lawyer. They had custody papers claiming I was an unfit mother who'd kidnapped her baby from its rightful guardian. Mom had been building a case for years, documenting every mistake I'd made as a teenager, every party I'd attended in college, spinning it all as evidence I was reckless. When we wouldn't let them in, they camped outside our building. Mom would stand under our window wailing about her stolen baby. She called CPS with anonymous reports that we were drug addicts and contacted my husband's employer saying he kidnapped a child. Grandma went to local churches asking them to pray for the baby being held hostage by a selfish girl. They made our lives hell, and I was terrified to leave the apartment with my daughter. But one day I had to when my daughter spiked a fever. Mom followed us to the pediatrician and tried to rip the baby from my arms. She caused such a scene that security restrained her while she screamed that I was the kidnapper. The doctor called the police and understood the situation immediately when the pediatrician testified that I was an excellent mother, while Mom couldn't even answer basic questions about how often to feed a baby. The judge granted us a permanent restraining order. My daughter is 5 now and has never met the grandmother who wanted to steal her.